is the map of Cuba in the Caribbean islands of Western Hemisphere. This is the La Habana or Havana, the capital. Che monument is there in the central Cuba, the Santa Clara in Villa Clara province. We were staying in Cienfuegos. It is around 70 kilometers from Cienfuegos to Santa Clara. Hi friends, this is our second video on our travel to Cuba. In this video, we are trying to convey our visit to a place which is considered very sacred as far as the Cubans are concerned. This is our visit to Santa Clara in central Cuba, where the Mausoleum of Ernesto Che Guevara is located. Actually, Santa Clara is located around 280 kilometers from Havana, and it is only 70 kilometers from where we stayed in Cuba, the Cienfuegos. Santa Clara is considered as the temple of revolution in Cuba. It is not Havana, which is the most sacred place of revolution, but the Santa Clara, where the monument of Che Guevara located. Everyone who is coming to Cuba will be visiting this place. Definitely the Mausoleum of Che, the Sanctum Sanctorum of revolution, the epitome of revolution, happened in Cuba. Why Santa Clara is considered so sacred in Cuba? Why not Havana? That's a question everybody asks. I will elaborate a little bit the history of Cuba and its Cuban revolution. Batista ruled Cuba the most autocratic way possible, and Fidel Castro and his compatriots were having a guerrilla war against him. His compatriot and associate Che Guevara was leading his 8th column, the famous 8th column from Sierra Maestra Mountains to Santa Clara. He had a couple of attacks to Santa Clara in December 31st and the adjacent days in 1958. This attack was instrumental in forcing Batista, the autocrat, to go into exile. After this incident, a few weeks later, Comrade Fidel Castro became the Prime Minister of Cuba, and he was in power in Havana. Such is the importance of this place. We were staying in Cienfuegos with our friends Esther and Benjamin. In Cuba, most of the foreigners either come as conductor tours, mainly from Europe, or as backpackers. Individual tourists are a very rare thing in Cuba. And those who come as backpackers or as individual tourists usually travel in a Cuban tourism bus called Via Azul. Even though there are ordinary buses available, ordinary buses are not meant for tourists. The problem is that Cuba has got two different types of currency. One used by the locals called CUP, Moneda Nacional, and those who one used by the foreigners called Cuban convertible currency, which is pegged with US dollar. In the ordinary buses, they will only accept the CUP used by the ordinary Cuban citizens. So we can't travel in that bus. And Benjamin said, though it is very near, it is not easy to get the Via Azul buses to Santa Clara very often. So we will take you in our car to Santa Clara. Actually, it has its own advantages because the Via Azul buses travel through the main highways, which is devoid of any traffic. And just like the airport tarmacs, it is a well-maintained roads, the national highways. Benjamin said, we will pass through the inner road so that you can see the beauty of central Cuba, the villages and the small towns. We were also delighted to travel with Benjamin and Esther. It's only 1.5 hours away from Santa Clara, that's all. The Santa Clara, which is located in the Villa Clara province of Cuba, as I told you, is the epitome of revolution. So everywhere, wherever you look, there are posters highlighting the revolution and also the slogans of Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, and also Jose Marti. Cuba is green, green and green everywhere. You can see up to a long distance the sugarcane fields, the rice fields, and the only eyesore is the sugarcane mills, which is located here and there with its long chimney for smoke. You need not enter into the Santa Clara town to go to the Mausoleum. There is a bypass approximately 1.5 kilometers away from Santa Clara where you can take a right turn and go to the Mausoleum per se. Only disadvantage we had was when we reached Mausoleum, there was the repair works and the whitewashing going on there because it was the 50 years anniversary celebration of the martyrdom of Che Guevara. After the Cuban Revolution, Che Guevara entered into the government and served as a Minister for Industries. But in 1965, he resigned from the job and went to South America to conduct revolution in Bolivia. But unfortunately, he was trapped and caught by the Bolivian soldiers backed by CIA in 1967, October 8. And on the next day, he was shot point blank and assassinated. That was the end of the red star which shined over Cuba. As you are aware, Che Guevara was not a Cuban. He was basically an Argentine citizen, a medical doctor. During his youth, he had a traveled through the entire South and Central America, where he was shocked to see the apathy and the hardships of the common people led by the dictators, and he finally landed in Mexico, where he met Raul Castro, the brother of Fidel Castro. During that time, Fidel and Raul was planning a coup in Cuba. Che Guevara also joined with them and went to Cuba to conduct the revolution. Ultimately became successful. After his assassination, his body was buried some unknown place. Lot of effort was put to identify where his body was buried, but 3 decades went and nothing happened. In between, before burial, his right hand was chopped and was taken to Buenos Aires for a fingerprint identification to ascertain and to confirm that the person whom they shot was Che Guevara indeed. Then, under Fidel Castro, every plan was made to make a mausoleum for Che Guevara in Santa Clara. John Dillard, the architect, was in charge. And the monument was an ample dedication to the great revolutionary spirit of Che Guevara. The monument was started construction in 1982 and ended in 1988. It is a big mammoth structure with a 22-feet statue of Che in his full military uniform with rifle and his classic hat. And there is a collage of his journey, epic journey from Sierra Maestra Mountains to Villa Clara. And there is a museum dedicating his childhood to his part as a revolutionary in Cuban Revolution. Then there is a big square, like the Revolutionary Square in Havana. On either side, there are the slogans, billboards, and the Cuban palms, the national tree of Cuba. Later on, in 1995, the burial place of Che Guevara was identified as Villa Grande in Bolivia. Even though he was shot dead in La Higuera in Bolivia, his body was flown to Villa Grande for a burial. And the exhumed remains of the Cuban revolutionary was brought to this mausoleum and was kept here under an eternal flame. Later it was realized that along with Che, 6 of his compatriots was also assassinated on that day. Later, the exhumed body and the remaining ashes was taken here and was kept along with the body of Che in the burial chamber. Detailed evacuation later found out that 30 other comrades also were buried here. They were also brought here. Just like every mausoleum, this mausoleum has also, there are a lot of restrictions for entering. No hat, no sunglasses, and you should keep the utmost decorum in entering the mausoleum of Che. One by one, we were taken inside. This is a small room with an eternal flame burning, and all the compatriots and the comrades died along with Che. Their plaques are made star-like, names are written and kept on the walls. We bow our head in reverence in front of the eternal flame and came out. Then there is an adjacent room, the U-shaped room, where is a museum of Che. As I told you before, from his childhood, there are a lot of memorabilia attached with Che are kept there. His rifle, his medical degree certificate, this uniform he was wearing during the revolutionary times, and so many things. It's definitely worth a visit. The unfortunate part is that photography is strictly forbidden and no camera is allowed inside. We spent 2-3 hours in the monument. If the no repair work was going on, we could go to the top of the mausoleum and had a beautiful view of the Santa Clara town and also the surrounding areas. Unfortunately, we could not do that because the entry to the top was closed for repair. Behind the Che monument, there is a garden. The memorial of his compatriots who was martyred during the Villa Clara revolution. There are many, his 8th column brigade, during their travel from Sierra Maestra mountains to Villa Clara, was martyred, and this garden is dedicated on their memory. Their names are written in plaques and kept over there. This is a well-maintained, a beautiful garden indeed. Worth a visit after seeing the mausoleum. It was one of the most memorable visits we ever had during the last 30 years of our travel. And the Cuban government did their best to keep the flame and the memory of Che alive in this mausoleum. Thank you for watching this video, and I will come up with more videos on my further travels on Cuba later. Thank you.